I guess my question for you is, if I'm looking to get a gun for self-defense, it's like, what's a family-friendly gun, a gun that's good for the whole family, if you're trying to find a good starter gun?
If there is such a thing, right? Yeah, I mean, so when it comes to houses, you really you want to stray away from any long guns. So shotgun, rifle, stuff like that. The reason for that is because there's too many corners. It's too short. They're going to see your barrel before you see them. So they're going to know where you're coming from, stuff like that. And I would say the best go-to is a handgun, right? Now, I'm a little biased because, again, of my profession being a cop. I'm a little biased towards the Glocks, right? So when I'm working, I carry Glock 17. It's just your basic 9mm. It's a little bigger, though. I would probably recommend like a Glock 19, which is smaller in stature, much more fitting. Even I prefer the Glock 19. Sig Sauer is another one that's pretty common.
I think I shot that at the range.
The SIG.
But you thought there was some safety issues with that, I think?
So I have heard in the past, I've never had an issue with SIG, but I have heard in the past of some misfire issues as far as the way, I don't know if it's the way the internal system works with the firing pin or what it may be. I don't know the internal workings of a SIG. I don't. But from what I've heard horror stories of that going off in holsters or in pockets, or if obviously if they're not properly kept, it's possible it could go off, which I don't recommend doing.
I may not even be able to afford a holster, so I might just do the old waistband.
Yeah, I mean that's
something. I think that might be extra dangerous with a SIG, so I'll probably avoid that.
Yeah. So a couple things to note with the Glock. There is internal safeties, like I said. One of the main ones is on the Glock in the trigger itself, that it has to have a certain pound of pressure from your finger to go off. So that's why you can drop it on the floor. It's pretty safe. Obviously, again, I don't recommend these things, right? Let's not go out and run it over with a tire and test and see if it goes off, right?
Leave that to
But
Mythbusters.
for the most part, I've never heard of a major incident of a misfire with Glocks. Okay. So, yeah.
So, thinking again about Christy, I've talked to her about this. I think especially after that scenario, she was a little bit more receptive. I feel like a lot of times women are the ones that they don't feel comfortable having a gun in the house. They can't really see themselves doing that. Again, they don't want to have a gun in the house, but they'll have a metal baseball bat under their bed, right, ready to bludgeon somebody to death, right?
That's very aggressive.
Right, it's worse than the knife thing. But I think they just don't think about that part of it.
Right.
So when it comes to trying to get her familiar with it, I've heard that a lot of women get, I think, is it 22s? That's the smallest caliber.
Yeah.
But then a lot of people say that that's not even worth your time. They make it seem like it wouldn't even hurt to get shot by a 22. And I just feel like that can't be the case.
Sure. So yeah, if you're kind of leaning more towards the 22, I hear a lot of people say that too. And the reality is for rifles, right? So for law enforcement rifles, the ARs that we carry in our squads, those are just 2.23 rounds. So they're minimally bigger than a 2.2, a 22 caliber. There's rarely any difference.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, a bullet can kill somebody. You run into issues of, are they on drugs, right? What other issues are they not feeling stuff?
Might be more resistant.
Correct.
Shake it
a
off.
22, if they're on drugs, might feel some pain, pinches or something. But I mean, 22s are more likely to ricochet off bones and stuff like that when it hits a rib or something else. 9mm is obviously a little bigger, 40 cal, 45, whatever you want to do. But I would highly suggest the 9mm. If it's home defense, any type of handgun is really going to be fine.
So was your wife always receptive to guns, or is that something you had to train her?
Yeah, I wouldn't say train her, but get her more comfortable with them. I mean, she didn't even want to see the Glock box downstairs where in its case, right? She doesn't want to, at the time she didn't want to see it when we first started dating. Now she don't care that it's right on my head. She doesn't.
drills in the middle.
Yeah,
of the night.
no.
You wake her up
Yeah.
with the alarm. Like,
Get down.
wee-woo,
Yeah, yeah.
wee-woo, wee-woo, positions.
Smoke and like burn something in the house.
Yeah.
You know, like no. I don't do any of that. But I had a buddy of mine, very similar story, where his mom was very much against guns. Okay. About 4 years ago, there was some rioting going on, and his mom wanted a gun to protect herself in case someone broke in the house. So he reaches out to me. She's like, how can she get a gun tomorrow? I'm like, she can't. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It takes time to process. It's not something, right? I'm not talking about private party here. So for those that are listening that are like, well, I can go get one from my uncle tomorrow. I'm sure you could.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about actually like going through the steps. You have to go through an FBI checklist, all that stuff. So same thing, same kind of thing. When you needed it and you didn't think about it, and now when the time comes, you're like, wow, I should actually take a look into this.
Yeah.
You know?